Transformers 1984 Cartoon Explored. There were quite a few toys and cartoons that came out in the 80s, but some clearly stood out more than the rest. Transformers was a Hasbro toy line and television series that debuted in 1984 and quickly became one of the top-selling toys of all time. Transformers inspired an animated film in 1986, several additional toy lines, and also a series of live-action films. The Transformers were quite literally it. To many young children growing up in the 1980s, this was the ultimate toy and TV franchise.
You'll pay for that, Autobot!
G.I. Joe was a close second, but Transformers captivated the imagination of children in a way like no other. No other toy has succeeded to captivate and astound youngsters in the same way. Transformers the movie, released in 1986, impacted a whole generation and caused immense heartbreak as well. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin.
Robots in disguise. The Transformers.
What the cartoon television series is all about. The Transformers is very much an American animation television show that aired in syndication from the 17th of September 1984 to the 11th of November 1987, based on Hasbro's toy line named Transformers. It is the first television show in the Transformers brand, depicting a battle between huge robots that can change into automobiles. Sunbow Productions and Marvel Productions collaborated with a Japanese animation studio named Toho Animation to create the series for first-run syndication. For the first two seasons, Toho was the major animation studio and co-produced the show. Toho's role with the production crew was decreased in the third season, and the animation operations were split between Tokyo Movie Shinsha, which is now known as TMS Entertainment, and the South Korean animation studio ACOM. Nelson Shin, the show's supervising producer, is also the creator of ACOM. ACOM did all the animation for the fourth season. The second and third seasons were complemented by the famous feature film, The Transformers, the movie in 1986.
Destroy them!
The series is often commonly referred to as Generation 1, a moniker adopted by fans in response to the franchise rebranding as Transformers Generation 2 in the year 1992, and which finally made its way into official vocabulary. Later repeats of the series aired on the Hub, which is now known as the Discover Family and the Sci-Fi Channel. Takara's Microman, who was an Eastern successor of the G.I. Joe 12-inch action figure series, inspired by the Transformers toy series, and also the animated series Diaclone, a Microman spin-off, was produced in 1980, with inch-tall lifelike figures able to perch in the driver's position of scale model automobiles that could convert into human-like robot bodies that the drivers operated. Later in 1983, a subline of Microman called Microchange was released, which featured real-sized goods that turned into bots, which included microcassettes, firearms, and toy automobiles. Microchange and Diaclone toys were later found at the Tokyo Toy Fair in 1983 by Hasbro toy firm product researcher Henry Orenstein, who offered the idea to Hasbro's chief of R&D, George Dunsey. By 1984, numerous prohibitions on the inclusion of promotional information inside children's television programs had been lifted by U.S. authorities. The way had been cleared for the brand new product-focused television show. Hasbro previously collaborated with Marvel Comics to create G.I. Joe, a real American hero, for just a three-pronged marketing campaign that included the toy line, a Marvel comic tie-in comic book, and a cartoon miniseries co-produced by Marvel Productions and the Sunbow Productions of the Griffin Backel Advertising Agency production house.
Oh, more!
Given the success of that approach, Hasbro Vice Editor-in-Chief of Marvel, Jim Shooter, at the time, created a basic plot premise for the series, imagining two warring sides of alien robots, the noble Autobots and the villainous Decepticons. To further develop his vision, Shooter enlisted experienced editor Dennis O'Neil to generate character names and descriptions for the ensemble, but O'Neil's work fell short of Hasbro's standards, and they demanded extensive alterations. O'Neil refused to make the requested adjustments, and the venture was turned down by numerous authors and editors contacted by Shooter, until eventually, editor Bob Budiansky agreed to take on the assignment. Budiansky's new identity and profiles were a success with Hasbro, and work began on a bi-monthly comic book short series with 4 issues and 3-part television pilot over the weekend. Both the comic and the show would end up running for years after the modest beginnings, utilizing Budiansky's original concept work as a foundation to tell the tale of the Transformers in multiple different ways, producing 2 unique, unrelated elements of continuity for the franchise out of the gate. Shei Kohara, a Japanese designer, was responsible for developing the first character designs for the Transformers crew. Substantially rehumanizing the toy designs to produce more accessible robot avatars for the comic and animation. His drawings were later refined by Fleur O'Deary, who went on to become the series' primary designer, generating many more designs and concepts in the future. To most, the Transformers animation was little more than a fancy TV pitch for children's toys. While there is some truth to it, the show's writers decided to include a few emotional scenes for the sake of effective entertainment.
He risked everything to save us and...
The Season 1 segment Fire in the Sky, which featured the reappearance of a long-lost Transformer called Skyfire, a former buddy of Starscream, who was misled into joining the Decepticons, was one of the first to tug at the heartstrings. Skyfire, seeing their betrayal, attacks Megatron and Starscream, inciting their anger. Finally, he volunteers to sacrifice himself to rescue the Earth, and gets buried under a mass of ice and snow, destroying both Spike and the Autobots. Bumblebee and Spike were knocked out after a fight with the Decepticons in Season 2 in the episode Autobot Spike, putting Spike's life in peril. Spike's mind was transplanted out of his damaged human body and into the body of an Autobot made from leftover components as a last-ditch effort. Spike was traumatized by the mind transfer, which caused him to lash out and have destructive ideas. The episode depicted the anguish his dad Sparkplug went through. Omega Supreme's terrible narrative cannot be exaggerated. Omega Supreme, formerly a close associate of the Constructicons, was charged with protecting Cybertron's gleaming Crystal City in the early years of the war.
Don't let them confuse you, Spike. Destroy them!
Omega Supreme was finally betrayed by the Constructicons. In the Season 2 segment, The Girl Who Loved Powerglide, interspecies relationships took a whole new meaning. Megatron targets an orphan young woman called Astoria for an energy compound produced by her deceased father, causing Powerglide to assist and save her. He quickly becomes the object of her desires, initially rejecting them until changing his mind at the conclusion of the segment. The Killing Jar, the Season 3 episode, was a particularly contemplative and educational one, demonstrating how animosity and distrust may threaten to ruin both sides of battle. The narrative centers upon Ultra Magnus, Wreck-Gar, Cyclonus, and Marissa Fairborn, who are kidnapped by a Quintesson researcher in order to run tests on them. When the entire group is jeopardized by the existence of a black hole, things go wrong. With little sympathy between opposing factions, combat quickly erupts, threatening to murder them all until they come up with a way out of their dilemma. The episode concludes with a gloomy message for the present. The entire show is filled with many such emotional episodes, making it extremely memorable for everyone who has ever watched it.
No! I'm going to end your hunger once and for all.
Main characters of the cartoon series. Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime is indeed the Autobots' troop, awe-inspiring, strong, and caring commander. Originally a working-class human, he was selected by the Matrix to lead the Autobots, which was the first of many hardships he would have to undergo, one of which being his unintended migration of the Transformers' century-long struggle to save Earth. He is the popular antithesis of his mortal nemesis Megatron in terms of morality. Each causality, Cybertronian or human, military or civilian, weighs hard on his spark. He does not publicly express these sentiments to his fellow Autobots, though and occasionally approaches despair. He thinks that freedom is the right of all sentient beings and has fought the bellicose Decepticons for thousands of years. In robot form, Optimus Prime divides into three parts. The brain center is a sentient robot module. Roller is a wheeled drone module, a combat deck. Although Optimus Prime may function as three separate modules, any damage to one module affects the others. Ultra Magnus. Ultra Magnus considers himself to be nothing more than a soldier. He likes to take commands rather than offer them, and he even avoids taking more responsibility. However, when forced into certain situations, he demonstrates that he is not only a great soldier, but also a capable leader and companion of any other leader, such as Rodimus Prime. He's strong, steadfast, dependable, unselfish, and brave. Unfortunately, Ultra Magnus seems to be the only Autobot commander who is unaware of this. Ultra Magnus, who believes he is nothing more than a soldier, is completely prepared to sacrifice everything for the common good if necessary. He is aware that he is stronger than the usual Autobot and will attack greater dangers appropriately. Megatron. Megatron is a very well-respected and feared commander of the Decepticon revolt. As a youthful, charismatic leader, molded in conflict and the tradition of war, he started to believe in a noble purpose for his species. It is the magnificent destiny of the Transformers to govern an empire that will encompass the universe. He has enormous hatred for the rest of the Transformers, who, according to him, betray his proud lineage by wanting peace and collaboration with inferior life forms, the polar opposite of his sworn rival Optimus Prime. The Decepticons' destiny is to deliver order in the universe via conquest, yet it remains to be determined how much of his vision and mission is benevolent, and how much is simply rhetoric designed to motivate soldiers in order to promote his goal for personal domination. Megatron will practically do anything to attain his objectives, but his tactics are rarely subtle. This might be due to his hubris, yet his arrogance is not powerful enough to prevent him from quitting a losing war.
Until the Matrix has been destroyed.
Galvatron. Galvatron is a true force of nature. He is a central focus of might and madness, giving shape as a result of Unicron's manipulations. Galvatron is oblivious to everything except his hunger for power, and his fancies and wishes can be abandoned in a fit of wrath. Even his own colleagues are not immune. Though Galvatron is capable of long-term objectives, it is his volatility and cavalier contempt for all life that frightens both allies and enemies alike. That Decepticon commander is truly devoid of empathy. Galvatron was formerly Megatron, but in a Faustian deal with Unicron, he was recreated from his dying throes. He maintains Megatron's memories and spark, but his demeanor has been considerably altered as a result of the near-death experience, enormous physical upgrade, and retraining. This was all before he went crazy. The reason and amount of Galvatron's insanity, as well as his physical power, varied between continuities. He is sometimes portrayed as nearly invincible.
I entrust Cybertron to you, Shockwave.
Fear not, Megatron.
Shockwave. Shockwave, also known as NFSR, has been described to be a computer on legs. This really is not far off from the mark. Shockwave's cognitive processes are governed by logic, and it is the foundation of all his inspiration. He regards feelings as a flaw and a distraction. His terrifying and incredibly strong physique adds to his cold and calculated demeanor. Shockwave may be more formidable than Megatron, toward whom he seemed to be devoted. Perhaps rationality will one day suggest that the moment has come to replace Megatron's misguided, emotion-fueled reign. After all, Shockwave is the only obvious candidate for Decepticon Commander. Elita 1. Elita 1, commonly known by the name Elita Manon, and formerly E1, is Optimus Prime's female counterpart, a brave fighter who is empathetic to those that cannot protect themselves. She leads a team of female Autobots and has their complete trust and support. While her gun is strong enough to knock Shockwave out from the sky in one bullet, her greatest talent is the ability to temporarily pause time. Unfortunately, this talent takes the entirety of her life energy and is almost always deadly, so she only utilizes it in the most desperate of circumstances. When necessary, she consults the knowledgeable Alpha Trion via a holographic messaging machine. The fact that Alpha Trion is actually her maker is not known to her. Chromia. Chromia is actually a soldier under Elita 1's leadership, who appears to act as her second in command, directing the remainder of the squad while Elita is not there. She's courageous, tough as nails, and predictably in romance with Ironhide. She also has taken on Flare-Up's tutor from Firestar, who proved to be more suited to more offensive activities. Firestar. Firestar is actually an Autobot that appears in the Generation 1 comic book series. Firestar, together with Chromia, as well as Moonracer, sneaks inside Shockwave's base of operations under Elita 1's orders to steal a cache of Energon cubes. Moonracer. Moonracer is an Autobot who is a female that specializes in sniping. Her shooting prowess has won her a spot among the Wreckers. RC. RC is frequently seen in the company of her pals and comrade Autobot Springer and Hot Rod, both of whom she adores. RC, the more level-headed and sensible of the three, is generally the one who has to rein in the two others when their attitudes or moods go out of hand. She may be Rat Trap's relative, in addition to being a strong warrior and skilled shooter. RC, despite her beauty, is among the most vicious Autobots when her companions are threatened. In the pilot episode of the Transformers show, as the planet Cybertron's energon supply runs low, the Autobots leave in search of a new energy source. The Decepticons, their adversaries, follow. After a bloody intergalactic combat, both of their spacecraft crash down on Earth. When the Autobots run out of energon, they leave their native planet Cybertron in quest of other supplies. The Decepticons chase them down and ambush the Autobot spacecraft. The spacecraft crashes into Earth and becomes trapped within a volcano. Teletran 1, which is the ship's computer, awakens and revives them millions of years later. But the Decepticons are focused on taking advantage of Earth's assets for their own gain. The Autobots are as determined to defeat them. This marks the beginning of the series. The Decepticons aim to harvest as much energy as they can from Earth in order to return to Cybertron. The Autobots, together with their newfound human friend, attempt to stop them. The Autobots emerge from out of the rubble to help the humans. Spike and Sparkplug accompany them back to Autobot headquarters to aid them in their fight. The Decepticons proceed to pillage Earth's resources and create Energon cubes, intending to return to Cybertron with more than enough power to bring the Decepticons to triumph. The Autobots prepare for one final showdown to prevent the Decepticons from going back to Cybertron. Bumblebee and Sparkplug are immediately saved from some explosive material, but the Decepticons manage to blow their way out. After months of secrecy, the Decepticons emerge with new means for transporting Energon cubes back to Cybertron. The Autobots confront the Decepticons once again at the real site of the space bridge, rescuing Spike and destroying the Energon cargo. Megatron is thrown into the open space bridge and is soon to be destroyed as the conflict nears its climax. Starscream takes charge and commands a retreat. However, Megatron emerges intact through the space bridge within the Decepticon headquarters on Cybertron and pledges revenge on his adversaries.
Autobots transform.
Must-watch episodes. The first Transformers animated show was a true masterpiece. It catapulted the robots in disguise to superstardom among 1980s kids and set the essential parts of the mythos that subsequent incarnations of the series would follow for decades to come. Despite being somewhat antiquated and somewhat unsophisticated by current criteria, the G1 Transformers program contained several great episodes that will satisfy both nostalgic aficionados and first-time viewers.
Dinobots, transform!
Dino-centric. The Dinobots were a hugely popular subgroup of the Transformers, so it's no wonder that the G1 series Dino-centric episodes were some of the most beloved. 3 of the episodes, Season 1's War of the Dinobots, SOS, Dinobots, and Season 2 two-part episode, Desertion of the Dinobots, all have the same rating. Therefore, deciding which is better is a question of personal opinion. However, there was something fascinating about seeing the original 3 Dinobots rebel on Optimus Prime and then battle the 2 brand new dinos during the War of the Dinobots. The Search for Alpha Trion. The Search for Alpha Trion includes 2 crucial components to Transformers mythos, further confirming the franchise's significance. First, it acknowledges the presence of Transformers that are female, here depicted as a rebel squad of Autobots, led by Elita 1. Secondly, it features Alpha Trion, a figure who would later be shown to be pivotal in Cybertron's history, and the creation of Optimus Prime. If a spectator can enjoy the episode's tongue-in-cheek efforts at humor, it does provide some thrilling fight sequences, in addition to the insights into wilder Transformers mythos.
Decepticons, prepare to go in for the kill!
Call of the Primitives attempted to enhance Transformer legend by offering an origin story for the planet ruining Unicron, but the episode's revelation that its creator was a small ape-like researcher named Primacon was supplanted by the subsequent comic book. The concept of recruiting Transformers with wild modes to stop Primacon's latest innovation, a creature of terrible and unstoppable power dubbed Tornedron, was draining the cosmos of energy, was intriguing enough. Seeing the Autobots work together with the Decepticons was a highlight of Season 3, in a segment with some of the series' greatest animation. Starscream's Brigade. Starscream ultimately made a solid push for dominance in the Season 2 segment, Starscream's Brigade. After griping and complaining about being a stronger leader than Megatron, Starscream is exiled to a Pacific island following a feud with Megatron, and he creates his own army out of leftover World War II vehicles. The segment introduces the Combaticons, the newest combiner army in the Transformers canon, by imbuing them with the characteristics of renegade Decepticons imprisoned on Cybertron. Fire in the Sky. Season 1, Episode Fire in the Sky was an intriguing and overall well-written narrative that, aside from integrating Skyfire into animation continuity, offered Starscream a more human side, if such a thing is conceivable for a robot with such a vile personality. Starscream is desperate to resurrect Skyfire after discovering him buried beneath the ice cap, because he and the powerful Skyfire were scientific mates who roamed the Earth together prior to the onset of the war. Fire in the Sky is a fantastic episode, with excellent characterization, action, and narrative twists. The Key to Vector Sigma, Part 1. The unveiling of the titular supercomputer, and also its key in the Key to Vector Sigma, ostensibly concerning the construction of vehicle-based Stunticons to help the Decepticons and airplane-based aerial bots to assist the Autobots, was a big addition to the Transformers legend. Vector Sigma, along with the Key, plays a significant part in the Beast Machine's story as the driver of the Headmasters, as well as the resurrection of Cybertron, just at the series' conclusion.
As long as it suits your purposes!
Dark Awakening. When their beloved Optimus Prime died at the half-hour mark in the much-awaited Transformers the movie, an era of wide-eyed Transformer enthusiasts was profoundly shaken. Many tuned in after the Daily Show after the film eagerly expected his return, only to be shocked when he reappeared as a brainwashed revenant, bent on killing the Autobots. Heavy Metal War. The Gestalts were another enormously popular subgroup of the Transformers, consisting of numerous Transformers with different modes that could also come together to form a massive super robot. Devastator, the united form of 6 evil Constructicons, was arguably the most renowned of these Gestalts, and he made his debut in this episode.
Optimus.
The return of Optimus Prime. Once the outrage over his demise impacted the bottom lines of the Transformers toy producers, it was unavoidable that Optimus Prime must return. The Return of Optimus Prime, a 2-part episode, detailed his resurrection and reinstated him as the series' preeminent heroic Autobot. War Dawn. Megatron sends the aerial bots back in time in an effort to eliminate them, but they wind up trapped in the golden age of Cybertron. They encounter a dock worker called Orion Pax and also his fiancée Ariel while disoriented, but are stopped by a newly created Megatron who goes on to plunder the dock for much needed energon, severely injuring Ariel and Orion in the process. Cartoon casts: Peter Cullen, Optimus Prime. Peter Cullen is an American and Canadian voice actor, best known for his portrayal of Optimus Prime inside the Transformers franchise in the Michael Bay film series. He is also recognized for delivering the voice of the Predator in the movie released in 1987 of the same name, as well as Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh series and Monterey Jack in Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Jack Angel, Ultra Magnus. Jack Angel had been born in California, USA in Modesto, October 24, 1930. He has appeared in 4 films that the Library of Congress have designated culturally, historically, or artistically significant: Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Toy Story, Beauty and the Beast, and Shrek. Frank Welker, Megatron. Frank Welker grew up in the state of Colorado. He moved to California to pursue his passion and began a career as a voice actor that has lasted 5 decades and featured hundreds of credits. On Hanna-Barbera's renowned Scooby-Doo, Frank collaborated alongside many other well-known voice actors. Marlene Aragon, Elita 1. Marlene Aragon is an actress best known for her roles in Jem in 1985, Transformers in 1984, and also Challenge of the Super Friends in 1978. Linda Gary, Chromia. Linda Gary was born in Los Angeles in California on November 4, 1944. She is most recognized for her roles in The Secret of the Sword in 1985, Switch in 1991, and He-Man and She-Ra, A Christmas Special in 1985. Charles Howerton was her husband. She died in North Hollywood in California on October 5, 1995. Susan Blue, RC. Susan Blue was born in Minnesota, USA in St. Paul on July 12, 1948. She is best known for her roles in The Transformers, the movie in 1986, The Tick in 1994, and also Friday the 13th 7, The New Blood in 1988. Since October 2013, she has been wedded to Tania Themin. Cynthia Songe was her former partner. An incredible toy line. Transformers was not really a novel concept. The roots may be traced back to Takara's Toy Diaclone toy series, which debuted in 1980. It was a toy range that comprised morphing vehicles and robots driven by small figurines for a Micro Man toy line. They released a range of car robots that could also morph in 1982. Takara's Car Robot toy line was licensed by Hasbro, as well as Takara's Micro Man line. Several of the Autobot Transformers were derived directly from the Car Robot series. Many of the future Transformers were also available as Takara toys. In 1983, Hasbro executives went to the Tokyo Toy Show in search of the new toys to bring to North America. They would acquire the rights as well as the molds for all 28 Diaclone figures. Hasbro had the intelligence to realize that just releasing a new toy line was not the best strategy. Giving the toy backstories and character profiles gave them a sense of individuality that youngsters could relate to. A morphing robot is great, but it becomes much more fascinating when you discover they are a technological race from the planet Cybertron, and they are made up of both good and bad robots. Many Transformers toys will be released over the years, or even decades. The ones that debuted in the mid-1980s tied into the show and the original film. The initial Transformers release includes a large number of toys, 28 in all, 18 Autobots, and 10 Decepticons. 11 Autobots would morph into automobiles, 6 into tiny cars, and one of them into a tractor-trailer, Optimus Prime of course. 3 Decepticons would transform into planes, 1 into a tape player, 5 into numerous cassettes, and 1 into a weapon. Though it appears to be a large toy line, they pulled them from the initial Diaclone series, and most are duplicates of one another. The paint and accessories would be changed, but the actual procedures to transform the toy would remain the same. All of the models from the very first set were republished in the second series, along with 26 additional toys. This is when the branding became considerably more sophisticated, and subgroups were established. The Autobots have the Dinobots and the Omnibots, whereas the Decepticons have the Constructicons and Intersecticons. Along with these new enhancements, Hasbro would include features such as heat-sensitive rub marks on the reissued toys. When you rubbed the little decals, the heat revealed perhaps an Autobot or a Decepticon insignia. It appears to be a fascinating new play feature, but it was done to disclose authentication against many of the poor bootleg copies that were suddenly flooding the market. Both releases occurred in 1984 and 1985, but were regarded as a single massive event. The 2 programs, as well as all of the characters, will comprise the first generation of Transformers for the animated series. Everything released during this time period would serve as the foundation for the Transformers world. Intersecting facts about the cartoon. Even though the show is so popular, there is a lot of trivia about the show that many may be unaware of. Hasbro first rejected the name Megatron because it was too frightening. Bob Budiansky, one of the writers for naming the character, stated that as a villain, he was supposed to be frightening. Optimus Prime never was supposed to come back to the show after the film, but a popular uproar startled the creators, and he did. When Optimus Prime enters robot mode, the trailer travels backward and vanishes from view, while just the cab turns into the robot body. and when he enters vehicle mode, the body turns into the cab, and his trailer emerges from nowhere and links to the cab. Many fans have pondered what happened to the trailer in the course of the transitions, but no answer has ever been provided. Because both Bluestreak and Prowl transformed into Datsun sports cars and had helmets which had Devil's Horn crowns, the animators attempted to prevent misunderstanding by deleting Prowl's shoulder-mounted rocket launchers, which were included with the toy Prowl. However, every now and again, animators will mistakenly paint Prowl blue, just like Bluestreak. Early treatments dubbed Bumblebee Goldbug. His name was changed to Goldbug when he was rebuilt in the 3rd season. Marissa Fairborn, a character from the G.I. Joe animation, is also modeled on a Hasbro and Marvel comic. In one episode, Marissa chats with her father, who was played by Bill Ratner, who also gave the voice for Flint on the G.I. Joe cartoon, whose name is Dashiell Fairborn. So Marissa is Flint's daughter, probably via Lady J. The malevolent organization of animal-based Transformers known as the Predacons began as a friendly troop of Autobots known as Enobots. Instead of Predacons, their united form was going to be dubbed Dragon Beast. They were supposed to confront Devastator in the Transformers the movie 1986, but after multiple screenplay rewrites, wherein the Enobots had become the Predacons, they were written out of the tale and appeared later in the cartoon series Season 3. Bob Budiansky, who had been tasked by Hasbro with naming the toys given to him in order to help develop the tale for the Transformers brand, offered his characters various names in order to adapt them as a kind of choice. In the instance of Starscream, who had a silver jet when in vehicle form, one of Budiansky's possible titles for his character was the Silver Snake. Though his moniker was never utilized, it is worth noting that the persona of Starscream in the classic G1 series was played by comedic character actor Chris Latta. Chris also provided the voice of Cobra Commander in yet another famous cartoon of the period, G.I. Joe. Chris's voice for both characters was identical, and they were the two main characters Chris was best recognized for. In addition to being the leader of a snake-named group, the persona of Cobra Commander was frequently seen wearing a legendary silver facial plate that covered up his identity, which was disclosed in the G.I. Joe the movie in 1986 as somehow being partly snake-like in form due to a scientific accident, making him something of a silver snake in appearance. Other forms of media. 4-issue limited series. While editor Bob Budiansky did not write the first 4-issue miniseries, which was released months before the show, he went on to write the remainder of the comic, penning stories such as the Dinobots against Shockwave in the Savage Land. While the program was episodic, Budiansky and his team of illustrators, including Frank Springer and also colorist Nell Yomtov, had a continuous tale that naturally introduced new figures and took unexpected turns, such as Grimlock being king of the Autobots. Budiansky eventually bowed out and proposed Simon Fuhrman replace him. This was a no-brainer, considering that Fuhrman was the primary author of what is maybe the most obscure yet loved G1 canon of all time. The British Transformers comics. By the 80s, Marvel's UK subsidiary was publishing weekly comics that were mostly reprints of US storylines. Transformers will be no exception, appearing as the primary feature inside a weekly full-color publication, slicing an American narrative in half to fit 2 issues. Even with the stories divided, demand soon outstripped supply. Marvel's UK answer was to commission fresh tales to fill the void. These dark and intricate stories, including time travel and mutilation, were mostly written by Fuhrman, with artwork by Joff Sr. and Andrew Wildman. DIE creator Kieran Gillen recently found himself unwittingly curating a Twitter discussion on exactly how horrifying the UK series was. The IDW Comics. IDW, which was a little obscure at the time, acquired the Transformers franchise in 2005. Fuhrman assisted in expanding the new canon through numerous interwoven miniseries, beginning with both sides working in secret on Earth rather than crash landing. The plot expanded to include a Decepticon invasion of Earth, the incorporation of other Hasbro brands such as G.I. Joe and also ROM Space Knight to form a Hasbro universe, and astonishingly, the conclusion of the Autobot-Decepticon War in 2012. The whole Hasbro universe was relaunched with the Transformers Unicron event in 2018. At the moment, IDW is releasing a monthly Transformers book set before the battle, as well as the Transformers Galaxy anthology. In Japan, while the original animation finished with 3-part finale in the United States, Japan ignored this and instead developed a series of successors, beginning with the Headmasters in 1987. They all had tie-in manga, but they were all quite distinct, as is with the case with any original animation that gets a graphic novel adaptation. Fight is one of the new series gathered in the Transformers the Manga Volume 1. Super Robot Lifeform Transformers, a collection of short stories in which the Autobots help and support a boy named Kenji, and the story of the Super Robot Lifeform Transformers, which is set during the 3rd season of the G1 cartoon without Kenji and the Great Transformers War, led directly into the Headmasters anime. Kaneda's writing reflects the sense of vintage Takatsu episodes, while Magami's artwork is on model. It is an unusual combination that makes for an interesting take on the transforming robots. The future for Transformers. IDW Publishing will suffer a major setback when the Transformers franchise license expires at the end of 2022. Aside from reports that creator Robert Kirkman is keen on acquiring the license to Transformers together with G.I. Joe, that IDW is also losing for its business, Skybound Entertainment. There wasn't too much discussion about who will obtain the rights. Having said that, it would be intriguing if the Transformers ended up at Marvel Comics. The Robots in Disguise originally appeared in print in 1984, with their first series lasting for 80 issues. There's no assurance that now the House of Ideas will reclaim the rights in the foreseeable future, but having Marvel-owned Transformers would have a number of advantages. The biggest advantage of Marvel regaining control of the Transformers would be seeing everyone's beloved Cybertronians interact with the Marvel Universe's top heroes and villains. Bringing the universe of the Transformers through into Marvel chronology would undoubtedly raise its own set of challenges, but if done well, the possibilities are endless. Previous collaborations between the Transformers as well as the Marvel Universe merely touched the surface of what such a combo might provide. Seeing the Hulk battle toe-to-toe against Grimlock, or seeing Starscream as part of the Thunderbolts, are really just a few of the intriguing possibilities that may emerge if Marvel's outstanding writers and artists handle the characters correctly. Despite its highs and lows, Transformers was a large part of the 1980s and an integral part of everyone's upbringing during the period. There really is no other gift that sparked such enthusiasm in youngsters all across the world, as well as all those who follow the cartoon program faithfully. As previously said, G.I. Joe was indeed a close contender, and He-Man rounded out the big three. But nothing caught children's imaginations like Transformers. To everyone, it's the toys that a child doesn't even realize they desire. It combines all the aspects of technology, machinery, automobiles, aircraft, action, and a fantastic backstory to create something which is ultimately 1980s. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thank you, everyone.